Hello, everyone. Whoa. Welcome. I'm Karen Richardson. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia. Hopefully everybody had a great day. Did you learn something today? We'll kick off our big main, the blue shirts. These are the people who make it work and sort of the not so pretty face of this organization. Raise your hands. VSTE, yay. VSTE is a nonprofit organization, and we are run by a board of directors, again, volunteers who give their time to make sure that VSTE is doing the best it can to help provide the best professional development to the state. And that's really an important piece of what we do. And then look around to the folks near you. Presenters in the room, folks presenting, yay, thank you. And I've heard this out of somebody's mouth, I think Stephen Anderson, twice today. Look around at the people next to you. They're the smart people that you're all learning from. So one of the things we really want to do this year is encourage you to have those hallway conversations with people. I know we can connect on social networks, and certainly VSTE's got Facebook and Google and Twitter and you name it. But here's your chance to have really good face-to-face conversations with people like you, doing the kind of work you're doing in the state, and you can make those connections and then hopefully carry them with you when you leave. So that's really important to us, and we want to make sure we provide a lot of that networking time. And then the last thing I'll point out is there's a few folks here with those fancy light blue shirts with the lightning bolts on them. Those are our volunteers. We've got 20 or so people on our committee. We certainly can't cover all the volunteer work, and so we really appreciate our volunteers. There are volunteer slots still open for the next 2 days. So if you want to get a chance to really meet people, see a little behind the scenes of how VSTE works, and then of course get that cool t-shirt. And this year, you will be entered into a special prize drawing as well. You guys didn't know that, did you? And you volunteered anyway. We love you. And so you just check out the volunteer booth over near registration, and we'll be happy to sign you up for a volunteer slot. So let's see, I think I covered everything I needed to cover. 7 o'clock tonight, we're having our first ever VSTE photo walk. Tim Stalmer, photographer extraordinaire, will be meeting with us in the lobby. We'll take a tour of the hotel to check out some of the trees, and then we will be going outside, so probably a coat and maybe a hat. And he'll be talking to us a little bit about taking better photographs. He has assured me that I am welcome to come with my iPhone, and I'll even learn a little bit about how to use that better. So don't feel like you got to have a fancy DSLR to show up. Come and have fun, socialize. And then VSTE game night is tonight at 8 o'clock in one of the crystal rooms. They're in here, I'm being told. There will be Wii's, there will be board games, there will be fun. So please come and join us there as well. I believe I'll be in the Pine Room, I think I announced to people. So if you wish to come and chat there, I'll be watching the football game and hanging out and having a good time. I won't tell you who I'm rooting for. So, no further ado, I would like to introduce Karen Busher. Karen's on our conference committee, and she is the coordinator of the Student Technology Integration Challenge. And along with her is Scott Loomis, who is with Tech for Learning. They're our sponsor of the Student Technology Integration Challenge. And they're just going to talk to you a little bit about this competition.
Hi, like Karen just said, a lot more students enter the competition. There's something for everybody this year. So I also want to thank the judges. Most of the judges were either from last-minute changes, and so we were, as like Arlington, go by and see what they were doing, worked on. Next year, there's something again for everybody. There's desktop publishing for some people that don't have access to some of the more advanced technologies like video making and things like that, all the way through interactive technology. And I don't know if any of you saw the person here that was from senior at Franklin County High School. It was really, really advanced. There's his picture.
There's a picture on the, not me in the background, but the guy on the right in the background with all the nice hair.
But I really do want to emphasize that The goal of the stick challenge is to improve instruction, and it doesn't have to be something that's so technologically advanced. It just needs to be something that kids really are engaged with, and I think that's the biggest thing about technology. So much technology now is being used for testing, that it's really nice and refreshing to see technology being used for things where kids really get their hands on the technology and they're the ones manipulating it and doing some really creative, cool things. So STIC could not be possible without the support from Scott Loomis and Tech for Learning. He has been with us from the beginning, and financially he supports us and gives the kids some great prizes and some incentives for them to participate. So without further ado, Scott Loomis.
Thank you. And actually, that's Matthew, the high school student. And what's amazing to me about this, and why Tech for Learning is so eager to support it, is the kids, and there were 10 groups ready to share today. Like, they had all planned, and 6 ended up with complications of weather. So it's a marked improvement from next year. So if you're from, be honest, if you're from Eastern Virginia, you need to apply to this next year. I mean, it's right there for your kids and your families, and all the parents were there. And there wasn't, every single one was smiling. And there's Matthew, who apparently is a shy high schooler, who was so comfortable explaining his program, even though they couldn't download it because of the wireless problems. His parents were there, and he was fine with that. I mean, what high schooler is like, Mom and Dad, go across I wouldn't be like that far away. I'd have to be in another conference room to even let this happen with my daughter half the time. So to watch him and how excited and how professionally he was treated, shaking hands, people listening attentively. You can see Karen shaking hands with our elementary kids from the Arlington area. This is a ripe opportunity to share what you're doing in your class. And this does not have to be extraordinary work that took 3 weeks. Effective technology is differentiation by product. Lose the resource sheet from the curriculum guide. Keep the lesson objective that you're told to teach. But do something with technology instead. And if you're rocking and rolling, it takes 30 minutes. Because it's not like you can can a lesson and spend 3 days doing technology instead. Your curriculum office is going to freak out. You got to get the stuff in before the test. God forbid if you don't. Right? So something simple, as boring as you may think it is what we consider highly effective. So don't think you have to have something grandiose. We continue to see fantastic projects that people do in a single period. And that's the type of stuff you should be encouraged to submit. And we had a number of people, this group in particular, were 4th graders doing something on, they were doing on the American Revolution. They did raps basically about England and Britain to Taylor Swift's We're Never Ever Getting Back Together, right? And this little boy, one of those little guys in the picture, he was so excited to share, and I could listen to this music and everything else. They were 5th graders, but because they did it in the spring, they submitted it. So anything you do in the spring, we even have a way to apply in the spring. Anything they do in the spring can still be submitted. So it's all of your spring and all of your fall up to the deadline. So even as you're working through some simple projects in the spring, don't take that and say, it's got to be next year. Those are still, even if you do it right now, anything after the conference. So get those in. We continue to see huge growth, and I know that the teachers walked away with nice digital cameras today that the committee bought with the funds we provided for the teacher in their classrooms. So thank you very much. It's an honor to do this, and I'm so happy to work with Karen and Craig and the committee as they continue to expand on this. So thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much. How do we find out about when the challenge opens? Well, you need to join VSTE. If you are not a member of the organization, please join. I will pay for your membership. In fact, I'll pay for everybody's because it's free. Head to VSTE.org, click on the big Join Now button. We'll get you on your mailing list, and so you can keep up with these kinds of things that are going on, as well as the events that we have throughout the year. We thanked Tech for Learning. Now we're going to say a thank you to Dell. The exhibit hall will open tomorrow at 9:30, right after the opening session. We really couldn't have this conference without having the exhibitors, and in particular with our sponsors, people like Tech for Learning and Dell really help us bring in nationally and internationally known speakers to Virginia and make them a part of our conference. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Rob Baxter. He's the Dell representative, and he will be introducing Chris O'Neill, our afternoon spotlight speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Rob Baxter, and I'm one of the Dell account executives that basically covers Virginia for K-12. Burl Wingo is in the audience, I believe, in the back somewhere. He's another one of the county execs. There he is. So we're delighted to be a Tier 1 sponsor. We do have some sessions planned on Monday and Tuesday. We will be talking about some of our new tablets. I know that seems to be the big buzz these days, so feel free to come by and see some of those sessions. We're going to have those, they'll be recurring each couple times during the day for each of those 2 days. We also have a booth, I think we're booth number 415, so we'll be in the main exhibit hall for those 2 days as well. So our guest speaker began his career as an elementary and middle school teacher. He then became District Director of Technology for the state of Louisiana. He currently is manager of the instructional design at UVA, and he does consulting for ISTE and other state departments. He recently won an award for making it happen. It was given to him by his peers, and he's been profiled in Converge magazine as a shaper of the future. So he'll be talking on the topic of the truth about technology in the real world. Join me in welcoming Chris O'Neill. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this should be fun because, you know, this is home week. All my homebodies in the office are in the audience. I am Chris O'Neill. I'm a former elementary and middle school teacher. CPA, of course, stands for Continuous Partial Attention. We're going to have fun this afternoon. It's the last session of the day. We're going to be talking about kids and their future. I love all these memes, so I print these out. I send them to my nieces and nephews. I put really snarky memes on the office doors at the school where I work, which is a little university up the street. So what we are talking about is technology in the real world today. What I thought I could do is put pictures like this on the screen and then just leave them up there, and then we really could just leave, basically, because that's sort of what it is. Short session. We'll go drink. Pine Room's open. But don't really. We'll do it. We'll stay the whole time. We'll talk about some fun stuff. We'll talk about this picture. I think it's kind of interesting, and I want to pick these pictures apart. So I do hope you'll stay. I'll say some completely inappropriate stuff since I know I'm being recorded, so that's always fun. And it puts Karen on edge, which is always one of my goals whenever I work with her, because she looks entirely too calm. So here's what I love about these pictures we saw these exact pictures like 20 years ago, basically. You know, when we were all doing ed tech and we all had to do that preachy thing where, you know, this is why you need to support technology, because when your, you know, kids are grown up, they're going to be in this high-tech world and they're going to be doing these high-tech things. And that's not untrue. They are doing those things. So I don't know. The picture on the left is doing something virtual. It doesn't really matter what it is, but he's working hard and it's super high-tech. The top right picture is obviously something medical going on. She's got a tablet of some kind. And then the bottom right are some dudes doing construction, and they're using an iPad, or I don't know, maybe they're from the Village People, but I think they look like real construction workers. Here's the fun thing about these pictures, though, if you think about these. So the one on the top, again, the top left, I think, you know, I don't even know what the guy's doing, but it's real. It's a recent picture. The one on the top right, though, so let's focus on that one for just a minute. I want to pick apart what this girl's doing. I happen to know that she's a medical student, in case you couldn't tell that just from the photo. I don't know what device she's using. Maybe it's a Windows tablet or something. What I do know that I think she's doing anyway, I'm making a guess here, is she is searching for stuff, probably typing stuff, communicating with someone, researching, or maybe she's inputting information. What I think is interesting is this picture really could have been done 20 years ago, and what we hope she's doing is probably still the same thing. We also could take a picture like that and probably Photoshop out that Windows tablet. Does it really matter what she's holding? I don't know. It could be a Droid or an iPad or whatever. What I think is happening in that picture is those kind of higher level skills. I'm guessing, since she's a medical student, that she probably is really doing research. What I hope is happening is she's probably using whatever that device is, which again, I don't think that device matters. Who cares what it is? It's a piece of metal and a piece of glass, as far as I'm concerned. What's really important, though, is her, the human in the picture, and then what's kind of on the other side of that device, right? So there's stuff going on in there, microprocessors, blah, blah. What I really think she's doing in this picture are those higher order skills. I want to know, is she using this device correctly? Again, I don't care that it's a device. I want to know, who is she talking to? And how is she vetting the information she's looking at? Because if she's a medical student, I'm hoping in the next couple of years she's going to be in the medical profession, a doctor or nurse or something like that. Again, bottom right, I think, is also realistic if they're not entertainers, if they really are doing construction work. Either way, probably they're using these tools. I'm not sure what I'm standing next to. It might be that. No problem. Either way, they're using these tools in what I think is probably a realistic way. And I think that's part of what we'll talk about today is just some fun stuff about, so what really is realistic. You know these guys and girls. Craig and Heather, and then the backs of two heads who I can identify. That picture was actually taken by Tom, who's somewhere in the room, taking more pictures. There he is back there. In the VSTE Flickr set, so if you're taking photos, how cool would it be to contribute those into the VSTE Flickr group? But I think the same things are happening in that, right? So those pictures before, the ones on the previous slide, could have been taken 20 years ago. It's high-tech and da-da-da. The same exact skills, though, regardless of what is happening outside the classroom are happening there. Those people are collaborating, I bet. They're probably problem-solving. They're communicating. They're probably organizing. There's probably not a giant set of rules that says, I want you to stand right here and do exactly what I tell you. They're probably collective minds standing there going, well, wait, if we do this, this is going to happen. If I do this, this is going to happen. Who can we call? You know, who can I walkie-talkie with? Who can I search for? And anyway, you get the point of those. The other day at the university where I work, we were talking about job stuff, meaning, so all those jobs I just said, the construction worker, the medical student, the dude with the lightsaber-looking things, VSTE people who are here working. What we were talking about at the university was that discrepancy that we get blamed for and that K-12 gets blamed for and that all kinds of people get blamed for. Meaning people enter the real world and they're not ready to enter the real world for whatever reason. They're lacking skill, they're lacking knowledge, they're lacking commitment to hard work or whatever those things are. The interesting kind of debate that we got into was being at a university is an interesting place because it is kind of a little subculture, what I call a subculture of the real world, because it's a holding tank for people who haven't quite entered the workforce. So you've left high school, so you already paid your dues there, or had a great experience, sorry. Just kidding, speaking for myself. And now you're not totally ready to go into independent work yet, so you're kind of in that transitional mode. And then after that, something's going to happen. So that is real world. It is a completely real world for 4 years, but the sort of debate we got into was about what things are important for the people that come through university. And maybe those are different for people who don't go through university. And I was saying that was not true. I said I think the skills are the exact same, regardless of whether you do the mega job or the regular job or the MIC job or whatever. Those things are still important. You still have to debate with other people in a rational way. You still have to be able to back up research. You still have to be able to vet information. You're probably going to problem solve. All those same things, whether you're CEO or you skip high school and college altogether, and you just have to be a functioning adult. And those things are not that hard to identify in classrooms either. And part of what I'm going to ask you to think about toward the end of this is, I think a lot of times we get asked so much to focus on contriving things in the classroom so that they look like things on the outside, instead of saying, these are the things on the outside. I want those exact things. This next little piece, you don't need to read all that. I'm going to read some of it to you briefly. What I started saying to this group that was getting pretty intense, and part of the reason they were getting intense is because they've worked at university for 30 years and they don't do anything else. Just kidding. By the way, it was not my university. I forgot I'm being recorded. It's a different university. So what I was saying, I said, but you know what's interesting? I said, you can say that those skills are important, and why are they important? Because at the end of the year, you want this to happen. You want to get a raise. Or at the end of the year, you want to graduate with this great GPA. And I said, really, again, all those things, I'm still going to debate you and say it doesn't matter if it's a mega job or a MIC job. I'm even going to say it doesn't matter if it's in the 10 years. What you still want is the end of a successful day even. Let's really narrow it down to a single day. At the end of a successful day, for me, a successful day, I've probably done these things. I start off kind of planning, you know, I do want to have a successful day, whatever the success is. Maybe it's napping. Maybe it's just socializing with people. Maybe it's a big project. But I do those things. I wake up and start to go, so what has to happen today in order for me to have a successful day? And I plan out, oh, I got to get this thing accomplished, or I have to write this thing or talk to these people. I do plan out, who am I going to be interacting with? And am I responsible for everything, or am I part of a meeting at some point and we're going to share tasks? And again, I'm going to go through the rest of these kind of quickly, but who else is responsible? Where am I doing this? What is the outcome for the day? Is my successful day, I just want to get through this meeting and get my point across? The bar is pretty low for that. Or is the successful day like I'm writing a grant and I really have to just nail it? So I have a lot of intense work to do. Either way, my thought process is really the same. And I don't think that list of tasks for me is any different than the list of tasks that should be for a second grader who is slightly more egocentric than me, who probably doesn't really realize the whole world is around him. He or she really is thinking, I just need somebody to hand me the crayons, maybe. I just want to get to the Play-Doh, and between me and the Play-Doh are these tasks that the teacher is making me do. So I have to plan, and I have to look around, and I have to assess what's happening, and I tried it one way, and I didn't get it, and I didn't get the Play-Doh. So I got to reassess and replan, check my surroundings, and so on. So for me, it's interesting thinking about those jobs. I don't think that job or those skills are any different for second graders, to CEOs, to me, to whoever they might be. And I'm going to circle back around to this in a little while, too, because I want to ask you about this. And you know, there's a million of those charts like this. It's not anything new. It's workforce charts and things. Here's some kids from Virginia Beach area also, who I think are doing all these exact same things. And then here's one more that this was also not at my university. The challenge is this is also the real world. So there's all this cool stuff like this, a successful day and teamwork and projects and high tech and all these cool things. And the truth really is there are days like this. So then what do we do then as teachers in the classroom? How do I use all this cool technology and know that I'm not just contriving stuff, but I really am? I need to think, what makes this a successful day? Not just SOL passing at the end of the year, but what makes this a successful 20-minute lesson even? What makes this a successful Skype? How does that thing translate into that? And then also, how do I balance that? And some of us were talking this morning about this. How do I balance that with all this high tech? There are times when I really do need a second grader to look at me just for 30 seconds. Let me grab you by the little head and say, I want you to watch the words that I'm saying, because these are really, really important. So listen to just my audio for just a second. How do I take that kind of experience and translate it into this too? Because what we find in the sort of higher ed realm a lot is, unfortunately, we do all these cool high-tech activities and then students land with us, and some of our instructors at other universities allegedly have classrooms that look like that. So how do we balance that sort of self-discipline with technology too in the bigger picture of the real world and the high-tech projects, things like that? So just for fun, because I like taking risks, I thought we could do a poll everywhere. And poll everywhere, you probably already know, I'm sure, it's just a free online poll-taking website. Get polls, it builds cool live graphs, does all sorts of cool stuff. So I thought we could do one together. Oops, sorry, I'm getting a text. Sorry, 1 second. Hill, you need to chill. So let's try this. If you would go to pollev.com/eyepiece, not eyepiece. See if you can get there. pollev.com/eyepiece. Even if you can't, it doesn't matter. I'm going to make up the data anyway. It doesn't really matter what you submit. But it'd be awesome if I had real data. I have mental data made up that I'm ready to go if you can't really get there. pollev.com/eyepiece. Yeah, you can get there. Look how fast I got there. You can do it. Shh. They don't know that I'm hardwired. You don't have to tell them that. Wow, you're fast. So enter your 5-digit zip code. Part of this is I'm just curious, after all the weather, who are the troopers? Because the zip code that's most highly represented wins. So don't cheat. Who's 20155? Yell it out. Roanoke. Salem. Cheaters. I have to say I love whoever typed Hokies in there. Thank you for desecrating this activity. It's awesome. Because if I'd be out there, I would have been the one to do it. Testing the profanity filter, stuff like that. All right, let's stop it. Let's just say 221931. Who's 22193? Woodbridge, really? Yeah. Woodbridge / Salem, Virginia, I think is what that is, right? All right, let's stop for a second. So I want to do that for one. I want to collect some data on you because I do want to do this an activity with this later that is totally selfish that I want to put out on Twitter for VSTE, by the way. So part of that was just for fun, test the Wi-Fi, see if I could freak Karen out again to see if we could blow it. Let's try one more. That was our test one. Let's try one more. Give me just a second. What are some words that describe real-world technology? Don't do zip codes anymore. Thanks, whoever's doing that. Get out of the Pine Room tweeting. What are some words that describe real-world technology? You know, I don't know if the profanity filter really works, but don't try it on this because it's being recorded. After we stop recording, you should totally try that because it'd be funny if it didn't work. I'm going to do something with this information also. Somebody wrote live full. Live full? Is that really a real word? Are you the one that did it, Karen? Chris Hansen, awesome. Thanks for sharing that one. That's the creepy side of technology. So I want to collect these words also, again, for some tweeting activity that we'll do as part of VSTE, because I want to ask you some questions to continue this conversation after this session. So poll everywhere. I like that. I think there's a way to stop. I was going to try and stop it on the word distracting, but either way, let's stop, because it's too fun to see what all the words are. I want to collect those from you too because I want to ask you some questions about real-world words that describe technology and see if there is a connection between what I think real world is and what you said on those. There's some interesting information from Workforce Commission. Also, even if you look at USDA, oddly enough, there's some interesting information about work health. And some of the stuff they talk about as far as work health are going back to that slide that I had earlier. People who know how to assess their day's success and go in and plan ahead of time and think, what will make me successful today, tend to say I have less stress. Of course, their connection is to say work stress causes all these other problems, which of course is true. But part of what we're getting out of that at the little research project that we're doing at the university is trying to look at what are those things that translate without help and without work from K-12 into real-world workforce. So again, I want to collect those words from you, and we'll play around on Twitter with some of that stuff. We asked, as part of the study, to ask some university students what they thought as far as they left technology in high school, now they are in higher ed. What are they saying about it? So I want to probe a little bit into each of these quotations, just super short. But we asked a couple of these students, 4 or 5 students, what she said was, I didn't really know my own strengths and weaknesses with technology, basically. Meaning, I would sit down and sort of go, I got to write a term paper, and it has to be in Microsoft Word, and I know the margins, because that's what I was always told. And I can do it on Thursday if I behave really well in the lab. And then she would say, outside that, I really was sort of stuck. I came here and nobody helped me. It really was, I want a super high-end report. Nope, that was an F. So she said, I came here and sort of realized, like, holy crap, I was an A student in high school, and then I got here and I'm kind of like, I don't know exactly what it is I'm supposed to write, or how I use technology in this different way to find people and connect with people. Here's another one about technology use in K-12. So this girl was phenomenal too. And of course we asked them, can we sort of stalk you a little bit? Will you tell us all about your high school career? And they're phenomenal high school careers, just like 4.0 kids and whatever it is. So we're asking them a little bit, like in this case, and by the way, I did change the names, but these are real quotations. We asked her, like, so what exactly are you talking about this? And she said, we had tons of stuff, but there was so much stuff that was like pre-programmed. So it was sort of like, you know, I want you to go to the whiteboard to do this thing. Or here's the laptop, I want you to make a PowerPoint that does this thing right here. And she said, then again, I come here in the real world, and there's none of that stuff. It's just, you need to defend why you chose this topic, and I'm going to totally counter you as the professor, and you better be ready to defend me back, because I know the topic way better than you do. And she's also one that sort of said, it took me, like, really the first semester where I bombed out with all this stuff, because I was sort of mentally waiting for that person on my shoulder to go, now, here's the PowerPoint template, and here's the rubric, and you need 9 slides, and only use these sources, and here's where I'll tell you you've been successful at the end of that. And this girl said, so for me, I'm freaked out now because I was like the top student in high school. And then I came here and I'm like the slacker, and I'm like, oh my God, what's happening to me? So I think these are fun quotations, and again, I'm hoping you'll respond to these or react to these in a few minutes. So we asked in this one, and this guy was probably really the most eloquent about group work and the real world skills of group work. And we said, so, you know, I said, so I taught, middle school and elementary school, and we would constantly structure you guys into groups, so I don't know, why does it feel like that doesn't work for you? And he said, because it really is freaky. You come here, and we're kind of all, in the groups I've been in, we're all these type A people. So we're all the overachievers. So we all sit down and go, awesome, so I'm going to be the one who's doing the research, and who wants to be the recorder? And then we all sort of look at each other and go, I'm not being the recorder. Like, forget that. He goes, so then we fail. Our whole group bombs out because we don't really know how to work in groups together. Because everybody's like, well, I'm in charge of the laptop. No, I'm in charge of the laptop. I'll do the research. I'll do the PowerPoint. And he said, we sort of really realized, holy crap, we have no idea how to integrate into each other. And then we're stuck with all these people who just want their one role, and we don't know how to fit in a group, and none of our instructors show us that part. So part of us probing with him was, what could we do in then K-12 then that makes that better? And he really did just sort of say authentic group work. It was like we would do things like Thursday we're going to work in groups, and here are your 4 roles. You can choose from the role, which one do you want? And it was like we draw straws, and I go, well, I'm going to be the recorder because I draw that straw that said recorder. I don't know what recording means. I don't know what I contribute here. And we'll do one more that I think is interesting. Same guy, actually. And he sort of laughed and said, this one's even harder when you get in a group with a slacker. And he was like, because you don't really raise your hand and tell. He's like, and you could kind of do that in high school. You could be like, Miss Richardson, he's not even doing anything. He's like, the instructor's here, just like, what are you talking about? I don't need to hear this. That's your deal to figure out. And he goes, so you flop around for the whole semester. And he goes, for me, it was the first 2 years of flopping around. I guess I'm going to become completely independent and not be able to do group work. And he's like, finally, you flop like a fish into a group, and you realize I have to go in and say, okay, wait, let's all figure out how we're going to be successful here, and what are those questions we're going to ask, and what's our task, and how are we going to build this task. And so I think things like this are fun to think about. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about devices in the classroom now. So sometimes what we also get hung up on in K-12 are things, iPads and Google Drive and whatever. This was done on iPad, and I put some snark at the bottom of the slide because this morning we were talking about word walls and stuff like that, and somebody came up afterward and said, yeah, because I had said, it's too bad there's not an actual app on iPad that does Wordles, and this lady came up and said, no, here it is, right here. So I stuck this in here for you. There is one, so there you go. But really don't do it now because we're already on that rogue Wi-Fi thing. Here's what I want to talk about this one. So a lot of the work that I do outside UVA is going into school districts who want to do technology consulting stuff. And I can't tell you how many times a lot of it really is to come do workshops. They'll say, we bought like a whole bunch of nameless device 2 years ago and nobody's ever using it. So could you come here and, kind of make them use it, like do some fun stuff. And so I always say, I really can't do that. I can promise you, if you couldn't have done it, I can't do it. I can come tell funny stories and I can show them how to do it, but to change the culture of your school. So what I ask them sometimes, and hopefully not in the snarky way that I'm saying it to you, is why did you pick that in the first place? It may have been a perfect design. I'm just asking you, how did you arrive that that was the right device to buy? Or that that was the workshop that you were going to make all your teachers attend? What drove you to that decision? And it really is phenomenal how often that those decisions aren't based on real-world data. Why did we do this? Why'd we dive into Google Drive? Well, because, I don't know, it was free and everybody else was doing it, and the tech coordinator liked it. I'm giving you the abbreviated answer. I'm telling you, it's not always totally off, though, some of those answers. Why'd you buy, or why are you getting into Makerspace? Well, because I read it on Twitter, and it just seemed like the next cool thing, and I didn't really like the word flippin' classroom, so I thought Makerspace would be a cooler thing to do. There are even, seriously, I'm sort of picking on people, there are some school districts who will say, hey, can you come do sessions on the maker movement for us? And I'll go, I really can't, actually. I can probably find somebody who'll do it, but while you're on the phone, I would love to ask you my snarky question. Why are you doing that? Who's structuring that into the classroom? Who's deciding that second graders, that is real world for second graders to make stuff? If that's true, then oh my God, that's awesome that you thought of that. If you haven't thought through that, sort of those steps before, how do you assess that that's the right thing to do? How do you plan for that? How does a little second grader feel that he or she was successful in that? And you start asking people those questions, and a lot of times, unfortunately, you really do go, okay, never mind, I'll get somebody who doesn't ask me all this. Which is why I'm so poor and never get asked back for consulting stuff. It's way more fun, though. So the challenge then for us is, though, so all the little snarkiness. So we did group work, and that was a little bit funky. We did cool tech stuff and gadgets and whatever, and some of those things made it, and some didn't. So what is it then that transcends from the stuff we're doing in K-12? So what is it that's real world, meaning I don't have to contrive stuff so when they get to the real world it'll make sense. I can do those things right now. So I pick on Animoto a lot because I really like it. And so I always feel like I can pick on something that I really like. It's like a family member. I do Animoto all the time for family stuff and family reunions and picnics and school functions at UVA, things like that. What I also do, though, when I'm out in schools, I ask a lot, can I interview your kids who are doing these high-tech things? And I'm always looking, again, not to be snarky about it or mean about it, because I really want people to think about, why are you doing Animoto in your classroom? So I'll go to classrooms, and again, I do this in some schools. They'll say, we want 3 days of professional development, and da-da-da, and we want one day that's just all Web 2.0, like a cool, fun tour of Web 2.0. And I'll say, I'm totally going to do that. We're totally going to do that, but I'm going to make people answer questions about it. So I'm not just going to show how to do Animoto, because really you can figure that out on your own. But I am going to ask, why'd you come to this workshop? And if I come to your classroom and build an Animoto, I'm going to ask your kids questions like this. Hey, little kid, not in the Charles Hanson way. What are you doing with Animoto? And if I hear that kids go, I don't know, we were really good, and we get to make a Thanksgiving movie, then I'm going to walk out and cry. But if I hear little kids, who I do hear this often too, if they say, get out of my way, dude, we have to have this presentation thing done by Friday, like it's a competition. Who gets to win the regions of Virginia? And my movie is on Piedmont. So if you got questions for me, they need to be about, can you help me find some images? Or can you help me find better music? Or will you watch this? And the phenomenal thing is I have seen classrooms that do both those things. I've seen kind of the scary version where kids have no idea what they're doing or why they're doing it. And sometimes even the teachers will sort of say, I don't know, it was in the top 10 Web 2.0 list, and I'm on number 7 now. But then the complete opposite is true, and that's where I think that's phenomenal. That's totally real world, where kids really do know. I do know why I'm doing it, dude. I picked Animoto, and I said this kind of in the earlier session. I picked Animoto because I don't like PowerPoint. And I'll say, why don't you like PowerPoint? Because it's whatever. It's just old. and it's just still images. Like, I am trying to win this competition to get people to come to the Piedmont region of Virginia because that's the SOL that my group is working on. And I'll say, well, how'd you get Animoto? Did your teacher make you do that? And they say, no, not at all. What we have to do is, I am in a competition. I'm making the award-winning commercial, and that's what I want to do. So she's doing graphics, I'm doing music, she's doing video. So you kind of see that whole conversation. You can see kids where they really are. In my head, I'm fast-forwarding that kid to college and going, he or she won't have those kind of problems in group work, if they can do that. He or she won't know or won't be perplexed by why they're doing this project. He or she won't need the instructor in the college who's the big content expert to set that stage for them. They will get it. They will sort of know. I can vet information. I can look around. But what it takes is all of us to do that, to take a step back, and now I'm picking on us as VSTE people, to take a step back outside this when we go back and go, you know what, I don't just want to buy these cool new super devices. I might, but before I buy them, before I go beg for them, I do need to go back and go, how am I going to do this stuff in my classroom, and who's better off? And is this real world for a second grader? Is Animoto real world for a fourth grader? And I think if we ask ourselves those questions before we implement those things, then we do get better results. And not to get too gross into data, but of course there's tons and tons of data about that sort of thing. Data-driven decision-making, blah, blah. Short version of it really is, we're so rushed in education and we're so pressured, and then to add to that layer, I'm knocking us as techie people, we're so enamored with tech stuff, that's like a triple whammy. Because then we get back and we go, oh my God, I can't wait to do Animoto and the green go ball thing that I saw in the vendor hall and blah, blah, blah. So I want to ask you to think about, so what transcends from Animoto? And I'm picking on Animoto because it was a fun one. Pick one from this conference that you just heard about, that you saw today. An app or a Web 2.0 or a thing that you'll see in the vendor booths tomorrow. And you think about this too. What transcends from that? Here's what transcends, I think. By the way, this is also for the ADD crowd. Don't look it up now. Who has not seen Bat Dad? Do a show of hand. Oh, a big chunk of you. Look it up later for real. It's so freaking funny. So here's what transcends from that, because 54% of adult users are posting original videos, blah, blah, blah. Also, just for some fun research, if you don't look at Pew Internet often, they do a ton of reports, and they're pretty lightweight as far as, meaning you don't have to read 500 pages of a research report. They're fun. They're things to check out, and they're even a good grant writing source. If you're trying to write grant for equipment in your school, check out Pew Internet stuff. Here's why this matters. I read an interview, or actually watched an interview, video interview with Bat Dad, and it was phenomenal to listen to him talk about privacy and things like that. And he, for me, kind of freaked me out a little bit because he's hilarious for one thing. And I watched this interview with him, and he makes fun of how stupid it is. And he's like, I can't believe people even like this. It's so goofy and blah, blah. But then there's this interview with him, search for his privacy interview, where he talks about, I do know that I have opened up a camera in my home, and I'm letting people in, and people now know my kids' names and things like that. And I'm going to leave that because it's sort of chilling, the stuff that he talks about, but in a good way, the chilling in a good way. So here's another one, Wordle. Everybody uses Wordle or word walls. They are cool. In the session earlier, I was talking about things that I do think are sort of higher order-ish, where for me, if I'm thinking about real-world uses of Wordles, real-world uses really aren't just, I'm going to make one with Mr. O'Neill real big in the middle, and all my kids' names around the edges. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't know who's better off because of that. The glass frame in the door is better off, I guess, because you can't peek in. But there are real-world uses of a tool like Wordle that are phenomenal. If you look up some of the research, ASCD has some, even if you just search Google Wordle student achievement, there's some really cool things that people are talking about that help me as a young student get into middle school, get into high school, and get into college, where I do know, yikes, I'm being presented with tons of text and not someone who's prescribing to me how to attack the text and how to address the text. And now I'm being fed information in here. Not really, it was making a humming noise. It was the Rhythm Nation on the other end was telling me to start dancing. There's some neat research that talks about What can we do with tools like this, with tools like Wordle and word walls and visuals, so students can learn that I can create my own visual and my own visual cue. I don't need the teacher to say, let me handhold you into this big giant length of text, and I want to tell you what to look for exactly. And I want to prescribe to you the path that you should go down when you read this handout. Because what happens is they're pushed off a cliff when they leave 12th grade, and people aren't doing that anymore. And there's some phenomenal, research about little goofy things like word walls and Wordle. So what I'm asking you is when you do these things, when we're all guilty of doing this, when we go back from VSTE and we want to share all this cool stuff, take a few days off before you do the sharing. And really think for yourself, before I share Wordle, I am going to share the cool thing just to get them hooked. But I sort of need to be ready, too, to think about why are these second graders better off, or who cares if we're doing word walls? What's so great about it in this classroom? So I think it's just a reflection charge on your point. Here's a really important question. This is just between us. Who has not seen Honey Badger? Seriously, you have to watch this. So Bat Dad you can watch anytime. Honey Badger you should probably watch after you've been to the Pine Room. It would make more sense. I'll say nothing more about that. So here's what's happening too, and here's the point of all this stuff is people are doing this. What better place than in K-12 to teach people how to be creators and curators of information? There is no better place. Nobody else knows pedagogically what needs to happen in a brain to make these kinds of decisions. What kid doesn't want to be the next Bat Dad? It's not because everybody's fame hungry, but how fun is it to say, I want to put my stuff out there and publish it? Like, that's real world. Honey Badger, as goofy as it is, it's totally real world. The guy's probably making a mint out of all the ads he sold on the Honey Badger YouTube videos. Bat Dad's getting all kind of stuff. I'm sure Marvel Comics is probably going to make a whole reality show of the Bat Dad soon. But the point of all that stuff is, there's silly stuff, but we have the tools to do that. And we have the structure as teachers to wrap the pedagogy around it. And I think that's the part that moves things forward into the real world. So when people do hit me at university, or a McJob, or a job outside university, they're ready to do those things. I sort of like this quote about defining intelligence. I don't want to belabor that one. We'll do one more and then we'll wrap up. We're going to do one more poll everywhere. So if you haven't heard of Phil Schlechte, it's really good stuff. Look him up. Don't spend a lot of time on it now. Take a picture of the slide. Just write Schlechte. The guy's all over the place. How many Schlechtes are there going to be? So he talks about levels of engagement. And I want to ask you, traditionally, as an adult learner, either at a conference like this or at a faculty meeting back at your school, what's your typical level of engagement when you're just an adult in a meeting like this? When you're sort of forced to be the recipient of knowledge or recipient of information through no choice of your own. Super short version of what these are, Schlechtes. The top level engagement really is you've got a high commitment, this stuff's personally valuable to you, and you're going to take personal meaning with it, so you kind of don't really need external motivators. The topic itself is the motivator. The second, strategic compliance, meaning I have a reason to be motivated. It's not necessarily personally deep motivation, but I need to get this because I want to be successful in this class. Third level, ritual compliance means basically I'm going to comply because I don't want to get a C, or I don't want to get called on. So I'm kind of just sit here like, I'm with you, I'm nodding. Yep, real funny, dude. And then there's retreatism, which really is, don't call on me. I'm not committed, but I'm not making trouble. And then there's like Tim Stommer, rebellion level, where I had to do it. He did this to me at ISTE, so I had to flip it to him. And then there's that level where not only am I not committed, I'm also not engaged, and I don't even like you talking to me about this stuff. I'm so ticked off that you're wasting my time that I have other stuff to do that I'm going to cause problems. How many of you have had kids in your room who get to that level? And it's way more fun to just blame it on them, right? Because, oh, God, the kid's a knucklehead. But truthfully, I don't know. Is there a structure that I could raise him back up a little bit? Could I get him out of rebellion even? Even ritual compliance? I mean, it sounds sad that that's the bar. I don't know. The reason I bring this one up, and then I want to sort of end on this one, we'll skip the little poll everywhere just for time's sake, is in some of Schlechty's work, he also connects this to workforce and success in the workplace outside college. And what he says is, people who learn to structure themselves and be vocal about what moves them up this ladder also have healthier work skills and healthier lives overall and more success in the workforce, are more successful in college and higher ed, because we're very aware of what's happening. And it's sort of interesting, with all the technologies that we use, not making kids aware of why they're doing it. And here's why I want you to do this, and here's why this tool works. And even getting down into this, the non-tech version. Why are you here? Why am I saying this? Why am I planning this? Again, I'm fast forwarding just for time, but it's sort of fun to get kids even to think, what's your level of excitement about this topic? Let me ask you this. And you can ask kindergartners that or 12th graders. I'm going to skip this just for time's sake. This last slide that I'm putting up here is just more for your information. You can go to it now, but go to it later. It's an easy one. tinyurl.com/VSTEskills. And the point of it is sort of wrapping all that up. What do we do as ed tech people that mirrors the real world? How do we structure Animoto and things like that in a classroom that isn't contrived? And then why do those things matter? And what I love about this article and some of the research that you find at that article is it sort of maps out the whole thing. Here's why you do it in second grade. Here's what it does for a second grader's sort of pedagogical experience. And here's what that looks like when he's 20 and when she's 30. So it's sort of fun for all of us as ed techies, again, to go back and reflect on this and think about, why am I doing this? How does this transcend? How does my goofy little Web 2.0 thing provide anybody a better, school life or work life after my classroom? This is my own thing, and I'm stopping on this note. The reason I say this one is because I do hear a lot of flack about public schools. Now that I'm not in one anymore, I have gone to several board meetings of school districts in Virginia, who I shall leave nameless, and gotten into really big debates with the public and school boards about real world stuff. And the point of it is because I see teachers getting slammed for trying to do these things. And I've been in those situations where teachers are working super duper hard to do cool high-tech stuff, and it isn't going somewhere. So I think it behooves all of us as kind of people who were able to come here and were able to be a big part of some conversation to go back and take it a step above the workshop and the wonderful world of wikis and reflect on some of these things and think about, again, what it is when those little kids leave you, why are they better off for these technologies that we bring back and integrate. So I would like to ask if anybody has comments from the audience about some of that. A couple of us were talking before the session about saying that it is too difficult to marry SOL to high-tech projects. And I'm wondering if that's really true. And what I said is that I didn't believe that was true. So if anybody would want to respond to that one, because that was sort of a burning question. It's too hard to marry the success of SOL to high-tech projects. Somebody take that one. I'm not going to call on the person who said that because she's in the room, and that would be mean. She's not wearing blue, I'll say that. We'll leave it on that note. What I hope you will do is look at the Twitter data that I collected from you. I want to look at your zip codes and the words that you use to describe real life engagement. And I hope that you'll follow along on Twitter. VSTE13, of course, is the hashtag, and I would love for us to kind of keep talking about this. I want to put some of that data out there, and I would ask for you to react to that just for fun so we can keep this conversation going. And then I will see you in the Pine Room in an hour. Sorry, I'm looping this while you're talking.
So thanks again to Chris for always entertaining but thought-provoking as well. And then just for fun, his own little loop. Thanks so much, folks, for help making our first day successful. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, starting at 8 a.m. We'll have our awards ceremony, recognize some great folks from Virginia, and then have a chance to hear wisdom from Vicki Cool Cat Davis. Meanwhile, photo walk, 7 o'clock, game night. Nobody's listening to me. 8 o'clock. See you in the Pine Room later. Have a great evening, folks.